missing the other one.
Oh, you missed it. Which one? This one?
Yeah.
All right, so let me hit record. Let me sit down. All right, well, welcome everybody who's here. Like I said, I got copies of these two handouts for anybody when they, if they want one when they come back, or you can give it to them. But basically, the first one I'll just show you real quick. This is just what I'm doing in my life right now. Some of you guys have asked about these videos that we record every week. Feel free to, you guys can connect with me. My cell phone is on back here. You can look me up on Facebook or any social media. I make videos on TikTok. If you guys do any of that, YouTube, these get uploaded to YouTube, my YouTube page. And also a way to look me up is Cuba Missions. If you look up Cuba Missions, you should find my videos and stuff. But I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit of, today I'm two parts. One is a request and the second one is kind of to tell you my story. This is a book that I might get you guys a copy of this Martial Arts and Christianity. I'm reading through it right now, but basically, let me first talk about the first thing before I talk about the second thing. Oh, I'll just preview what this paper is. So I'm in another Bible study, and we were all asked to fill out a timeline of ourselves and to tell our testimony, basically. So that's what this is. This is my handout. I'm going to present this to my Bible study group on Thursday. So this is just kind of, you guys get the first shot at it. And I'm going to add some details in here that maybe you would appreciate more than the guys in my Bible study. So let's just pray real quick and then we'll jump in. So Lord Jesus, we thank you for this time. I ask that you would help me to be able to speak to the things that are relevant to everybody listening and not just talk for myself. And I pray that we would all be edified, that this talk would point towards you. We thank you that we know that there's things in all of our lives that we're going through. There's struggles. It's not all happy times. Sometimes it's really sad times and things that are unsolvable from our perspective. But we know that you are the God who is the King of the universe. You're in control and are sovereign, and that you make all things beautiful in your time. We thank you for this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, so the first thing is kind of just to tell you a little bit where I am. It's kind of almost continuing what we talked about a couple weeks ago. I know last week I had a conflict with the guy who thought he was supposed to do the 7 o'clock, and I just let him do the 8 o'clock. But if you can remember back 2 weeks ago, a little bit, we talked about fasting. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you my story. And you've all heard, I think I've been doing this for almost a year, maybe 6 months. So basically, you guys already know a lot of my story, some of you, but some of you never heard any of it. So this will be kind of I'm going to try to do a full thing, but I'm going to start. See, any good story, you can't start with the beginning. If you're to write a story, you can't start with, I was born on this day. It's not, if you watch how movies are and you watch how TV series are, they always start with action and then they go backwards and then they kind of catch you up to the action because they want to capture your attention right away. So this is my action, I guess, my action moment. So what I've been doing right now. So 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, I turned 50 years old, and it's a milestone, but it's not that big of a deal. Also, I'm not very, when I was in Cuba a few months ago, one of the pastors got up and he told these guys, they treated us like rock stars on the mission field when we would get out of the bus. But one of the pastors got up, he goes, we love how you all are here with smiling faces. He goes, but in America, we're nobody special. And that's me, I'm nobody special. My videos don't get watched by many people, but I'm doing it for documentation purposes. But anyways, what God has been doing in me over the last several years is trying to teach me, and you'll see this on the other paper that I wrote, that one of the lessons that I've had to learn, I learned it in incarceration. I was asking God when I got locked up, why could this happen? I was doing a lot of the right stuff. I've been seeking God. People ask me all the time, were you a Christian before you went to jail? I said, yes, I was, why did all this bad stuff happen to me? And I felt the Lord speak to my heart and say, because you're trying to fight physical battles with spiritual battles with physical weapons, right? What I mean by that is not guns and knives. I mean, I was trying to make things happen based on my own abilities, make things happen based on, like, make my business happen based on marketing strategies, and bringing in the expert gurus to show me how to make things successful and stuff like that. And and it wasn't working. And I'm like, why hasn't this worked after all these years? You look at the story of Moses. He tries to be the deliverer of Egypt. And what ends up happening, he kills one guy and then has to go running. That's a big fail. And for 40 years, he sits somewhere in the wilderness and he feels like, man, I'm never going to do this because I thought I was called to be the deliverer. And obviously I'm not, because I killed somebody and now I'm hiding for 40 years. And then God says, okay, it's time. Now I'm bringing you back. And so in the book of Zephaniah, it says, not by power nor by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. All right. So one of the spiritual tools that God has been teaching me about, I remember when I was 20 years old, almost 30 years ago, 20 something maybe, I remember telling a pastor mentor friend of mine that, hey man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good on a lot of areas, but I'm really not good at fasting. And he kind of laughed at me. And I could probably say to you guys, you probably would agree that there's probably not many sermons, if you've been to church, going to church as long as I have, almost my whole life, not a lot of church services talk about fasting in a lot of places. Some do. There are some churches out there, but not many. Go ahead.
Not many talking about fasting.
Not many. And so I will say that it's not completely all my fault that I don't really know about fasting. I think some of it is on the church, because you look at a lot of the pastors in church that are super big, or what do we celebrate in church? Like, food is the big thing of every church event. Go ahead.
Food is not fasting. It's not eating too now. Fasting is like, say I want to fast off a phone or something else.
Right.
Different kind of habits you have.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it. Everybody think it's about food.
Right.
You fast with something else.
There's a lot of different fasts. Absolutely. So I'm going to just read this scripture first, and this is kind of talking about.
Which one?
This is in the book of Joel, chapter 1, verse 14. Actually, I'm going to go backwards and go to verse 13. And this is more of a group fast. Israel, back in the old days of Israel, they had actually, and they still do, have fasts multiple times a year where they fast. For those of you who are familiar with Muslim culture, they have a 30-day fast called Ramadan every year. Yeah. And they fast from sun up to sundown, and then they eat with their families and their community. And then there's other fasts. So, like, especially in American culture, I think we are the ones lagging behind in understanding what fasting is. I was in Cuba, in a country that is starving. Okay, the cows, the horses, the chickens, the dogs, every single one of them I saw, and people, you could see the ribs. I didn't see anybody fat, no animals or people. All right, obviously there's some people doing better than others, but it was shocking. But I also learned that this group of churches that I was going to with the team, that they fast once a week. Every Saturday they fast, and then they get together and have a fasting service on Saturday. And then some of the churches even fast twice a week, and they do a Wednesday and Saturday every single week. So I will tell you that I am not sitting up here in this chair to tell you that I'm that committed or dedicated to fasting. I did have, so my first fast that I did that was longer than a meal. I mean, you could fast for breakfast. That's fasting. Technically, when you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, that's why they call it breakfast, breakfast, because you've been fasting through the night. But my first long fast was 3 days, and I did that while I was incarcerated with a friend of mine who was also part of a Bible study we were doing in there. And he was addicted to drugs, and he had spent most of his life in prison, very big into meth. And in fact, we got out on the same week in July of 2020. We both got released. We fasted together in prison. We worked out together too. but we fasted in prison for 3 days together. And it was like the first time I've ever been able to get past the 24-hour mark. I think some of that, we're not going to spend the whole time on, I'm literally going to try to cap this in like 10 minutes so I can transition to talk about what's going on, what my story is. But there's been so much misinformation about, well, when you fast, it should be secret, you know? Okay, that's good. And that's true. You shouldn't tell people like you're fasting to brag. But the question is, how do you teach anybody how to fast if you can't talk about it, you know? So I've been reading books and I've been watching YouTube videos since I got out of prison about fasting. And there's all different types of fasting. People that are not Christian fast. There's people that just for health reasons fast. Movie stars fast. There's things called intermittent fasting where you do 16 hours. Yeah, you do 16 hours of fasting and then you have an 8-hour eating period. And sometimes they make that longer, 18, 20 hours, 24 hours. And then you have the multiple day fast, which are 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, and then 40 days. We are all familiar from scripture. There's 3 people in the Bible. Go ahead. Lent, there's fasting for Lent. What is like no meat, right?
No meat, no red. You can eat fish on Fridays or something like that. I don't remember.
But you're not supposed to have meat for, I'm not Catholic, so I don't know but
I don't remember. It's been too long.
and a lot of times Lent, you give something up for Lent. That's kind of an idea of fasting too. Sometimes fasting, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the vow of the Nazarite, that was kind of a way they would fast too. They would shave their head, and for the period of the fast, or the period of the consecration, they would not indulge in alcohol. There were certain things they wouldn't do. And then Samson was one story in scripture. God came to his parents with the angels and said, from the day he's born, Samson will be a Nazarite, meaning that that's why he didn't cut his hair. That's why he wasn't supposed to drink. Okay, there's certain things that as a vow of a Nazarite. So his parents knew this was a call in his life since he was born. So here's the verse. I don't think I read it yet. Put on sackcloth, you priests, and mourn. This is talking to believers, at least Old Testament believers. Put on sackcloth, you priests, and mourn. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come spend the night in sackcloth, you who minister before my God, for the grain offerings and the drink offerings are withheld from the house of your God. And then this is the part about fasting. Declare a holy fast, call a sacred assembly, summon the elders and all who live in the land to the house of the Lord your God, and cry out to the Lord. Alas for that day, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. And that's all I'm going to read about from now. So, having said that, I just felt, so I did a 3-day fast while I was locked up. And I was like, man, I can do this. Then I didn't really fast much after that because it was hard. First thing you do when you get out of prison, you haven't been able to eat good food. You're like, man, I need pizza, I need Chinese food, buffets, yeah. And I went from like 180 pounds to like 2 something, you know what I mean? Like, but then the Lord was starting to speak to me about it too, because the other reason for fasting, and again, we're not going to spend many more minutes on this, but because the things that we want in life, the lust of the flesh, the Bible calls them, they're connected. And food, you can lust for, it's one thing to eat and be full. Some of you guys have never been overweight in your entire life. I am not one of those people. It's like 1 piece of pizza, 2 pieces of pizza is not enough. I need to eat until the pizza's all gone.
I love it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So anyways, so while that might not be bad in itself, when every time you're stressed out, food becomes comfort food. We've all heard that, comfort food. For me, man, why are you eating so much? Why are you pigging out at night? Because I'm stressed out about my life and bills, whatever. But anyways, fasting can be a way to break through some of these strongholds in your life. So then last year, for the first time, I got the longest I'd ever fasted, 14 days. And I did it by myself. Nobody else did it with me. It was very hard. I swear, as soon as I started fasting, my wife and my stepkids were like, oh, I'm hungry. let's get pizza. Let's go to McDonald's. Let's do this. I'm like watching them. They're eating like 10 times a day. And I'm like, not to pick on them. My wife gets mad when I start saying that, but you notice it more when you're not able to eat. You notice it more. That's basically what I'm saying about that. So, but I made it to 14 days and I stopped. But in the Bible, there's 40-day fasts, and I was like,
No way.
I've never heard of anybody doing that. I've never heard of a pastor talk about it. But then I started doing research, and there are people doing it. And so I want to do a 40-day fast. It's kind of like I want to climb Mount Everest, like a bucket list thing. I would like to do a 40-day fast. So what I'm trying to do now, what I'm asking,
kind of fast? Food fast?
basically pretty much water. Only water. I can drink water, and also I drink coffee too in the morning. That's the other thing. But pretty much no food.
So you can go without eating food for 40 days.
I don't know.
I don't think I can handle
I'm
it.
in the beginning of it. I'm gonna tell you about it. That's why I'm gonna ask for you guys to pray for me.
But
as-
you did it for 14 days.
I've done it for 14. Yes, I did do it for 14 days. What happens is, and there's a lot of science behind this that people are learning now, is that when people that walk around overweight, we all kind of know this, but like when you walk around, that is energy, and it's energy your body's not known. Even if you're not overweight, we have stored energy in our body. And so back in the old days, nobody ate 3 meals a day. They might eat 1 meal a day. And then what happens when you eat all your food? Now you got to go hunt for more food. So that might be 3 days finding something to kill, cooking, and finally eating again. So God designed our bodies to be able to survive without food for a period of time. There is documented, you can look this up. His name is Angus Barbieri, I think, and I can't remember where exactly. I think he's from Scotland.
Sounds about right.
And he fasted. He was 450 something pounds, big guy, right? He fasted. Yeah, he fasted for over a year with no food on medical soup. They documented it. They kept, obviously he had water and electrolytes, which are like salt typically, and vitamins and stuff like that. But he was able to fast for a whole year. So, and he got down from 457, I think, to like 180, and he kept it off the rest of his life. So, people are, especially Americans, we've been taught that, man, you got to eat or else, your sugar is going to drop and everything's going to go bad. And,
That's why obesity's so running wild in America.
yeah. I'll be honest, it was kind of embarrassing. There were 6, I hope they don't watch this video, but like there were 6 of us on the Cuban missions team, and at least myself, I'll talk about myself. Us Americans were not the skinny guys. It's like all of a sudden you don't notice until you're around a skinny nation. Like, wow, I'm standing up on the pulpit trying to talk about spirituality, but really, these guys fast once a week and they barely have food. The one church I went to, the female pastor came up to me. Well, she wrote to me after I went home and said that she had not eaten for 4 days before we got there. They prepared a meal for us, so they ate obviously that day. But fasting is a way of life. Jesus fasted for 40 days before his ministry began. Moses fasted for 40 days and got the 10 Commandments. Elijah fasted for 40 days also. And what's interesting is all 3 of these figures, the only 3 people that talk about a 40-day fast, they met on the Mount of Transfiguration in the New Testament. Jesus, Moses, and Elijah were all together hanging out. Remember, Peter was there. And he was like, should we build you guys like altars? And Jesus was like, just chill, But, so anyways, my prayer request, and then I'm going to translate. What's up, brother? My prayer request for you guys is that you just, if you think about me throughout the week, send me a prayer, and then I'm going to have to be accountable to you next week. You're going to have to ask me, are you still in the fast? I'm going to say yes or no. I'm going to say nope. 2 weeks ago, I tried to start doing this after my birthday.
No lasagna.
I made it 2 days, and then since I did the 14 days, I haven't been able to break that 2 days because it's hard. The first 3 days of the fast, it's like going through drug withdrawal. It's like your body's itching for it. You're like, I have to have food. And then at like the 3-day mark, your body just settles in and just calms down. And then you like these last 3 days. So I've been fasting right now for 6 days. So this is day 6 right now. I'm about halfway through day 6. So at 9 o'clock tonight, it'll be the beginning of day 7 for me. So I'm okay. I got energy. I'm still working. There's a lot of people who fast who are working out while they fast.
Oh, boy.
It's crazy, right? It almost seems like that can't be true.
Supplements did you take during this?
The only supplements I take is like a little bit of electrolytes, which is I have a little dropper that I drop in the water, which is it's basically salt.
Yeah.
They say like if you don't have like special supplements or electrolytes, you can just take a spoonful of salt, and that kind of also makes the cravings for hunger go away, especially pink salt. If you have pink salt, the Himalayan salt. But anyways, keep me in prayer. My goal right now is to pass that 14-day mark and make it to 40. All right. And if I can make it to 40, that'll be like October 25th or September 25th. That'll give me about 5 days to kind of ease. Once you fast for a long period of time, you can't go out to Chinese buffet at the end of that. Your stomach is
shrunk.
Yeah, your stomach, your intestines all shrink, and you got to start with like liquids and go slow and build back into food. So
the people, when they liberated the concentration camps, and they brought food to the people, and they ate, and it actually killed them because their body didn't know what to do with it. So
Wow.
you gotta,
you got to be
I
careful.
don't think you'll die, but I think it'll go right through you.
Yeah. Question?
No, I was just
Stretching? Okay. All right, so that's about all I got on fasting. You guys did good, because I'll tell you honestly, most people get very uncomfortable when we talk about fasting because you feel like, man, I never fasted. I was even thinking about, but there's not even enough people do it. Like, how many people fasted a day? How many people fasted a week? But I ain't trying to put nobody on the spot. It is something that I would say if you're interested in doing it as a way to break through and get close to God, it also helps with if you're struggling with any kind of addiction, pornography. I'll tell you one more story about this too. Pornography, lust of the flesh, what else? Drug addiction, anything like that. Stress. What does the Bible say about stress? Be anxious for nothing, but everything with prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known to God. So the Bible says, like, stress is related to fear, and fear is the opposite of faith. And so if we're stressing, we're stress eating, we've all heard that term before, that is really, it's not illegal. It's not, people won't think bad of you that you could tell everybody, I'm just stress eating. I just have to do this because I'm going through a lot right now. I have to eat this pizza. But like, nobody really looks down on you for that. But the reality is, God would rather you take some time in prayer and have peace. Again, he's not against food. He created food. He was born in Bethlehem. You know what the word Bethlehem means? The house of bread. All right? He says, I am the bread of life. He says, but he also says, man shall not live by bread alone.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of it.
Well, we can do without food, but not water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we need water. So I would say drink water if you're gonna fast, and even if you want to drink coffee too. I mean, do research. I'm not saying you guys should all start fasting. I'm just saying I'm fasting. Be in prayer for me. I made it to day 6. So let me talk real quick about this paper, and then I'll talk about my story, and I'll tell you my story. I gave you all this because this is my information, all right? I teach martial arts. I've been doing martial arts for 30 years. One of the reasons that I'm fasting, I actually have what I'm doing is to keep myself motivated. I'm making a reason a day for why I'm fasting. And I can read you my 6 reasons I got so far. But on the back of it's my schedule. What I am doing, I charge for martial arts, but what I'm just started to do is make scholarships. So you guys all qualified for a scholarship. If you've had, basically I have like a paper that people fill out. This may be something you don't do till after the mission, whatever, but just, if you want to contact me, that's the way you can contact me. My phone number's there. You can find my Facebook, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So I gave Chapel Welcome one of those copies too. But my martial arts school has never gotten big. I've been teaching for 30 years, but it's been small groups of people. I've taught a lot of people to black belt, but I've never been able to make a living off it. So one of the things that I believe has been stopping me is, again, like I said, the Lord's been saying to me, you were trying to solve spiritual problems with physical weapons, in physical ways. And spiritual problems need spiritual answers, right? So now to my story. Oh, actually, I just need one of these. Oh, it's right here. out to my story. So I was in a Bible study a few weeks ago. The pastor gave us all an assignment. This might be something you guys could do on your own and even do it with each other. And you just write out your story, because the idea of this is everyone here has a story. And you might not think you might not be famous right now, but we are famous in heaven, okay? The Bible says that before we were born, the Lord knew us and he knit us in our mother's womb. Every person, every life is valuable to God. It talks about in Hebrews that there's a cloud of witnesses that watch us. These people who have gone on to be with the Lord, I believe in some way are watching us. Like we're the movie. Do you know what I mean? Who knows how long it takes to watch the movie of the whole, not just because of us, but because we are part of the big story, his story, Jesus, the story of Garden of Eden all the way to him returning and creating a new heaven and a new earth. So here's my story. And I have my little thing marks down at the bottom of this page, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. If you haven't guessed already, that's my age. Yeah, that's my age. Another guy went in our Bible study this week, and he had it with his actual dates. But I grew up, I was born into a Christian home, and when I was probably less than 10, probably somewhere between 5 and 8, I remember going to a church service, and the pastor was talking about sinners going to hell and fire and brimstone, and I went home, and I don't know, maybe I had a hard time going to sleep at night or whatever, but I remember both my parents coming into the room and telling them, like, I don't want to go to hell. And they're like, all right, cool, and they're so excited, like, oh man, he's becoming a Christian. They prayed with me, and everything seemed great, and I was a Christian now. And it's like, my parents are like, we got that out of the way, but really, is anybody here grown up in church? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, how many people like just found out about God recently? No, in America, it's hard to talk about evangelism. Most people's heard something about Jesus and God growing up, even if it wasn't the full truth. When I was a preteen, like 10 to 14, I went to a program called Awana, which was like Christian Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And we would go there, we'd memorize Bible verses, we get points for memorizing Bible verses. And if we did enough of them over the course of the year at our church, we get scholarship to go to a Christian camp in the summer. And so my brothers were like, obviously we knew my parents were broke and they weren't going to pay for summer camp. And so they're like, hey, if you want summer camp, you got to go to this thing. So I excelled in that. I got the equivalent of the black belt in the Awana program, which is called the Timothy Award. It means that you went through their whole course. And I won year after year after year, many Christian camps that I went to, and everything seemed to be going good until I got to be about, I don't know, whenever puberty started. Puberty started to hit, and I started noticing these girls around me.
Yeah.
And then I got a driver's license, and I was going to Christian youth group, and my dad was letting me borrow the van because he thought I was doing all the right stuff, 16, 17, and I got kicked out of church because I was like, oh, I'll drive these girls home from youth group, and I didn't drive them all the way home. I drove them and got them high, and we'd have sex, and this one girl, I would say it happened once at least, this one time, and then her father found out, and then they called the leadership of my church, and we all had a huddle, and her dad and my dad and the pastor of the church, and they were like, Mark can no longer come here. And I got basically kicked out of church. And I was like, I don't know what to do right now. Because everything in my life, my entire team, social network was in church. And obviously, just being a Christian doesn't mean you don't sin, right? We all know that. I mean, you got to put in the work too. Or else, just because you said a prayer, God come into my life, doesn't mean that you got everything fixed. And that's what the process of sanctification is. So I get kicked out of church, but it also was a good thing. So it was a good thing in my life because I went to public school. I was in Christian school up to a certain, like 6th grade, and then the school closed down because of finances. Then I went to a Catholic school for a year, and then in 8th grade I went to public school, and I got bullied because I could talk to you about the Bible, but I didn't know anything else. And all these kids had grown up together, so I didn't have a friend group really. And I got bullied. And so I'm like, I had a plan. I'm going to beat this kid up. I'm going to learn some martial arts. So I found this Kung Fu the brand new Kung Fu school that went into my neighborhood, and me and my buddy went there and checked it out, and I joined Kung Fu. It was like $195 for 3 months of class plus a free uniform. And I was like, I'm in. I'm gonna learn how to beat this kid up. So I jumped in it and I began to study, and after a while I forgot about the fact that I was trying to beat this kid up. I actually did have an encounter with him. That's like another story, but that reason became not as much of a reason anymore. I fell in love with martial arts, and it was a family. And you know, I had big brothers in it that were like telling me the right stuff, like, dude, you need to get a job, dude, you need to work hard, you need to save money, stay away from these friends that are doing drugs and craziness, because they're all going to end up in jail. And also my teacher would mentor me. I lived with him for a while. I slept in the studio for a while. I rented it from him for like nothing almost. So then fast forward to age 21. I met my wife a couple of years before that, but I got married when I just turned 22, a couple weeks earlier. And then I joined the military. We started having children. We moved away from my Rochester, New York, which is where I grew up, to Albany, New York, which is about 3.5, 4 hours away. And because that's where her family was from. And as soon as she was pregnant, she was like, I'm not staying around here because your family is nuts. And I need my family because they're supportive. So, which she wasn't wrong. By that time, my Christian family had divorced, blown to pieces. My brother had grown up in foster care, was incarcerated as a teenager. He was causing all kinds of problems. He was kicked out of the summer camp because he was so wild. And just a bunch of bad stuff was happening at this point in my Christian home. So everything had gone to crap. Luckily, I had the martial arts was a positive influence in my life. So by 24, I had 3 children. So moved to the year 2000. A buddy from college in Rochester says to me, hey man, I'm in the Air Force now. You should join it. They're offering $20,000 sign-up bonus if you join the military. I'm like, $20,000, man, that could get me right, you know? I had no money. I had no good job. I had gotten kicked out of high school because I skipped too much. So I did get a GED, but I was kicked out of high school, so I didn't have like the good job. Like a lot of people, they go to college. After college, they get the amazing job. I didn't have that track. So I was like, $20,000, I'm doing it. It wasn't because I love my country. It wasn't because of anything else. But my buddy told me like, hey dude, what's the chances that we're gonna go to war? This is August 2000. I'm like, all right, you're right. He's like, it's easy money. We're not gonna go to war, this and that. Fast forward 1 year, 9/11 happens. I'm like, and I get a phone call from my sergeant, and he's like, because I had to go through training. That took a year to just get through all the training. And I get a call I'm in the National Guard, which is like part-time military. But I get a phone call, we're going to war, pack your bags, and be here at the base at such and such time. I'm like, oh my gosh. I remember the morning of 9/12/2001, the base commander was sending us to New York City to help out, and he said, you guys know you're volunteering, right? If anybody doesn't want to go, you don't have to go. I'm thinking like nobody's gonna say I don't want to go. Like, we were under attack. Those of you are all, I think everybody in this room right now is old enough to remember. How old are you?
40. Well, my birthday is August the 30th.
Yeah, so you remember.
49.
I'll say you might be one. Who's the youngest here? You? Yeah, so we're all old enough to remember 9/11. People under 30, they were little kids. They don't remember it, but like for us, it was like a moment in time that all of a sudden, I remember conversations with my martial arts teacher before, and he was a Navy guy, and he'd be like, nobody's ever going to attack America. We're the biggest dog in the yard, you know, kind of thing. Like, we have all the weapons, we have all the nukes, we have all the control, superpower. And then 9/11 happens, and we realized that there was holes in our armor, and that a small group of guys that are pretty much untrained with barely any weapons could take out America. So they shut everything down. 9/11 shut the stock market down. It shut the airlines down. Disney, everything got shut down. Yeah. Not to mention all the people that died. So, so now all of a sudden I have this thought like, this is why God put me in the martial arts, so that I can help people. Because if you're in an airplane and you're under attack, there ain't no 911 you can call and get the police to show up. You're the guy. And even the the one airplane, Flight 92, I believe, they were projected to be aiming towards the White House, okay? And that didn't happen because there was people inside that plane that fought against their attackers. That was the only plane that it happened. They realized the protocol of terrorism before 9/11. If you got your plane hijacked, you can watch movies before 9/11 too. If you got your plane hijacked, the rules were this: cooperate and nobody dies, and everybody's going to be safe, and they get the terrorists what they need, and the plane lands. This was different. This was they were getting on the plane knowing that they were going to die, like kamikaze pilots in World War II, and so that made us vulnerable. So I was like, this is why I learned martial arts, so I can teach people to be safe, and I'm in the military. A few weeks later, I was sent to Washington, D.C., and I was in like a really kind of important job. They have the headquarters of the National Guard for the United States is at Andrews Air Force Base. That's where, Air Force One with the president. That's where all that is. And so I got picked to do a job there. I thought I had orders for 6 months, and everybody who got orders for 6 months at the time ended up having full-time careers out of it, except for me, because while I was there, I had a problem with my security clearance because my college loan, because I did end up going to college after getting my GED. My college loan went into default for non-payment, and that jammed my security clearance up. And the people in New York, my commander and my sergeant, chief master sergeant, they called me and said, your clearance is not good. You need to come back to New York right now. That was not true. I didn't realize that at the time. I was young. I was like, okay. I packed my whole family was with me in DC. Packed them up and we left. And I got a call from the person I was working for in DC, who was like a high-ranking civilian. Like, there's people in the government that are not military. They're civilians. They call them like GS-12. There's different like job codes of but they're important people. And it's because of what they know how to do, or maybe they used to be military, retired, and then they became a government civilian. But he was who I was working for, and he was on vacation during that time in December when I left. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? We could have cleared your clearance here. We processed the security clearances in this building where you're working. If you would have just waited for me, but I was young and I reacted, and boom, and there goes my military career, which my wife never forgave me for. We had it good. It's like I was this close to something, but that's all right. God had other plans. So fast forward, I started raising children. I worked in food. In 2004, when I first started martial arts, I wanted to do Christian martial arts. I was going to have every belt was going to have certain Bible information you had to learn, and it was not just going to be martial arts. It was martial arts and Christianity together. I was in New York. New York was not the Bible Belt. It's like the opposite of the Bible Belt. There's a lot of people that really don't like God. So it wasn't a great marketing strategy. It didn't really work. Then the military thing. But so I'm like, I need something more credible. So I joined Freedom Bible College, which offered branches. They would help you open a branch of the Bible college. And through joining them, I found out there was a mission trip going to Nigeria, to Africa. And I was like, man, I want to go to Nigeria. I want to help people, tell them about God. And I'm a guy that like loves adventure. When I was young, I wanted to be an archaeologist for only one reason, because I thought that's what Indiana Jones did. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't realize being an archaeologist was like getting a little brush and going, you know what I mean, for hours a day and writing papers. Somebody told me that, I would have been over it. But so my 3 kids, Joey, Abby, Madeline, are all born when I first got in the military. Hannah comes later, my 4th, in 2009. I deployed with the military once to United Arab Emirates. But then, I kind of built a seemingly good life. We didn't have a lot of money, but it seemed like things were good. My life consisted of driving kids to football practice and cheerleading and being with my kids. And I wanted to be a good dad because when I grew up, my dad and mom were there, but they really didn't know how to be what I needed to thrive. Like, I mean, obviously, if you become a parent, you know that like none of us do it perfect. We all do our best. But in my younger years, I was like, I'm gonna do it better. And so it was important to me. Family was important to me. And then fast forward to 2017, my third oldest is having her birthday party, and my wife looks over. She's already not happy with it. I'm still, all these years, trying to build this business. It never seems to take off. It never seems to take off. My kids and my friends are all saying to me, dude, this is not going to work. Just quit. Just quit. And my wife at the time said, I was going to do some traveling with my brother. And she said, if you do this traveling with your brother, we had borrowed money and we were going to go film martial arts guys around the United States. We bought these very expensive cameras. We went to Las Vegas, and we actually we ended in Israel. So we were even going to produce this series, a documentary series about martial artists called From Sin City to the Holy Land, right? And like all this martial arts, because by that time I was into Krav Maga, which is Israeli martial arts. So I have a lot of instructors who are from Israel. But my wife didn't want anything to do with it. She didn't want me to do Bible study. I never was able to do a home Bible study the entire time I was married to her for 20 years. I don't want to talk too much about her, but basically in 2017 at the birthday party, she's like, hey, let's go over to the neighbors because I want some papers. He's wrote up some papers for us to sign so that if your business doesn't do well, all these risks that you're taking, the house will be protected, the kids will be protected. And I was like, well, that sounds good. Let's do it. So we left her birthday party at our house, and we went to 3 doors down to the neighbors, who was a lawyer, and I started signing papers.
Divorce paper.
And they know what you were saying.
I was like, it said separation papers. I'm like, these look like divorce papers. And it said, I am waiving my rights to the house. I'm waiving my rights to the kids. I'm waiving my rights to everything. She's hustled me, right? She hustled me out of everything. So I knew things were bad between us, but I didn't even picture at that time. It took me about another 6 months to figure out that like this relationship was completely over. And I had to move out of the house, and that began a very hard time in my life.
That's when you should have did that karate. You should have chopped it up.
I know. I'll be honest, I had thoughts of burning the house to the ground, not with anybody in it, but I was like, I'll burn, because I lost everything. I'm like, let's just let it burn to the ground. But I didn't. I didn't do it.
At that time?
Probably in my like mid 30s. So no, maybe almost 40. Mid to late 30s, probably. So it was about 10 years ago that this all began. 2017. So I'm 10 years from 40. I was about 40, almost 40.
I'm gonna take a wild guess. You had a hot wife. She wasn't fat and out of shape.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I'll throw this out there again. I hope she doesn't watch this. She don't love me anyways. She would like to see me hanging from the gallows, but she basically was overweight most of our marriage, and then she got a gastric bypass, and she lost 100 and something pounds, and everybody at her job started going, dang, who are you? Are you the new teacher? And she's like, no, I've been here. They're like, wow. And so all of a sudden, like, she's like, I'm with this dummy that doesn't know how to make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That hits a nerve, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand, man. And then I'll say for 10 years, she has not stopped. I mean, she was the one that wanted the divorce. She has not stopped taking me to court.
She haven't stopped?
She hasn't stopped. She continues to try to get more child support, more child support.
Right up there.
And in New York State, you have to, my youngest now is 17 and a half. But in New York State, it's not 18, it's 21. And if they go to college, you still got to pay. So it could be up to like 26 you're paying. So, but that's in God's hands. So that's one of the reasons I'm fasting too. Let's see. Then, so she divorced me, and then helped an anonymous caller to the federal government. He's dangerous. He's got lots of guns. I was teaching people how to protect themselves with weapons, right? He's dangerous. Him and his brother, and they got guns. And my brother was a little bit crazy, and he was the one that grew up in foster care, went to jail, and all that stuff when he was a teenager. And so he was making videos and putting them on Facebook with his, this is our guns, like kind of like militia kind of vibe. And I was rallying with him, but at the same point, this is my brother, so I kind of put up with his crazy. But that was part of how I got in trouble too. And because basically the ATF pulled me in and they said, listen, man, we really want your brother, but he doesn't live in New York State. He lives in Oregon. You live in New York State. And if you deal with this, we will leave him alone. And I was like, okay. So here I am thinking I'm doing the good thing. I ended up going to jail. My brother, who...
How long?
Just 15 months. But I went to federal prison. I did about 5 months in county before I got sentenced, and then I went to federal prison. Never had a crime before, law-abiding citizen, military career, you know what I mean? So, and all of a sudden I was on the other side of the fence. So, what else happened? So, I get out of prison in July 7, 2020. Oh, that's the story I wanted to tell you. It's a good time to tell it right now. My buddy I told you that fasted with me for 3 days, his name is Will, good dude, and I still talk to him. But we both got out the same week. We were in Bible studies. COVID hit while I was locked up, and they locked the whole facility down for several months. We couldn't go to the yard. We couldn't go to the chow hall. We had to do everything in our unit. And I was in Kentucky, Ashland FCI in Kentucky as a low because I didn't really have a lot of points. And so anyways, he was somebody that accepted the Lord a few months earlier, and he was on fire for God. But he had a big problem with meth his whole life. And, you know, as time went on, he was like, well, I'm never going to do meth again, but I think weed, I'll still smoke weed, and I'll still, what is the other thing he said? DMT?
Yeah.
Right? He's like, DMT is good. I was like, I don't think it's good, man, you know? So, but we became real close friends, and we both got out the same week. And he was supposed to go to a 1-year program similar to this, but it was through, I can't remember what it was through, but it was like a 1-year program after prison that was like a rehab program. And he had somebody that had paid for the program. It was like $5,000. They had already paid for it. He didn't want to go. And I talked to him. I was like, dude, if you don't want to go, don't go. That was bad advice on my part. But he gets out. We're in the middle of COVID. He goes to Texas. I go to New York. And remember, this is the guy I fasted 3 days with. He goes to Texas. He doesn't even have anybody check on him because Texas and New York are two different states. First thing I get out, I didn't have a drug charge or an alcohol charge or anything like that. They alcohol test me, drug test me, and put me on 3 years of supervision where I can't drink alcohol, and they're going to randomly test me and show up at my house all the time. So him in Texas, they're like, yeah, we're just going to make a phone call. Like, how you doing? You doing okay? All right, we'll keep checking in on you. And they hang the phone up. So over a period of a little bit of time, he starts getting back. He moves back to his family's house, and they're all felons and drug addicts. So what do you think he's going to start doing? He's start doing drugs again. So we would talk over the first 6 months, and I watched him, and I'm like, man, he's not doing good. He got this job making so much money, and I was jealous because I wasn't making that much money. I was dishwashing when I got out, and I was like, man, he's making all this money. I can't, you know. And I wanted him to come up with me to New York so we could be together and rebuild together. And he was going to do the fitness stuff, and I was going to do the martial arts stuff. And sure enough, in less than 6 months, he got locked up again for 15 more years. Yeah. And so now I still talk to him. We email together. He did at one point have an illegal cell phone we were talking to, but he don't have that no more. He got that taken away, and he got all his email taken away for a few months, but he just got it back. But the thing is that is the danger of all of us. Don't matter how much clean time we got. And I'll say clean time from sin. You could be the pastor with 20 years of clean time, and all of a sudden that new secretary girl that you got hired tempts you away from your boring wife that's yelling at you all the time, you know? And it all crashes to the ground. So that's why I believe that we need to learn what these weapons that the Lord's given us are, the spiritual weapons, and I do believe fasting is one of them. Prayer, worship, fellowship with other believers, right? Jesus, think about it like this. Jesus was God in the flesh, and he did not do it by himself. First thing he does when he goes in, he fasts 40 days, then he goes and picks a team. Right. He builds a support system. I remember hearing that the first day I got to the federal facility. They're like, your release starts the day you come in. Start planning, start building your support on the outside that for jobs and all this stuff, start saving, have a mindset of, I'm going to be out. What do I need to do to be successful? And let me tell you one more thing about me and we'll end, is that when I got out, I had a plan. I was very focused and planned in prison. I was going to get out of jail, and I was going to start doing street evangelism. I was going to make a church. I was going to grow a huge martial arts school in New York, and I got out, and I was alone. And it was like the loneliness. Next thing you know, I'm struggling again with sexual sin. I had a long distance girlfriend. Well, that was not enough for me to just see her every few months. I was cheating on her, and I was crying out to God, like, I'm not doing well. And Lord answered my prayer, brought Tanya into my life in December of 2020. And the day I met Tanya, I was like, look, I don't date. We need to get married. I can't play around. She's like, okay. She's like, but I'm waiting for my divorce papers, so we have to wait a couple months. But we basically met, engaged, married on the first night we met, and we made it legal 3 months later. But and then we had a reception party a year after that, where we invited family and stuff. But so Tanya was a big lifesaver. She has 2 sons that are now my stepsons. One of them lives down here in Savannah with me. In January 2024, I was even after marrying her, I did not have a Christian support group of regular dudes, and so I was struggling spiritually with a whole bunch of stuff. And I remember volunteers coming into county jail and like saying that things were good on the outside, but they said they missed being in prison because they had guys that were arm in arm with them, and on the outside everybody's doing their own thing. And they missed being in prison. I was like, how could you miss this? But they missed the fellowship of, you know what I mean? So that's one thing I would encourage. Like me and Dana actually were just talking about this morning, like about AA and NA. Like it doesn't, if AA and NA work for you, great. But if that's not your thing and you don't want to do that, you at least need to follow. Those principles are all biblical principles. And one of the principles is the whole idea of going to a meeting is the biblical principle of not forsaking assembling yourselves together. You got what you're doing right now is in some ways it's forced, but there'll be a point where it's not forced and you're going to have to put in the hard work. So prepare now. And we will end with that. And Cuba. I went to Cuba. When I moved to Savannah, I actually, for the first time in my life, 3 years ago, started meeting people like Chris Matthews, he put his arm around me and he's like, hey man, Old Savannah City Mission, I go there on Tuesdays. Band of Brothers, I go there in the mornings on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then I met Chaplain Welcome, and Chaplain Welcome was similar story with me. He was law enforcement, and then he was a felon. I was in military law enforcement, and then a felon. So me and Chaplain Welcome connected right away. And yeah, so now I'm 50, and who knows, I may have 1 year left to live, 1 month, or 30 years, 50 years, I don't know. But either way, it's on me to do the work. So that's all right. But basically, so I hope you guys got anything out of this. I would encourage you to do this with your own life story, because whoever you are, no matter where you are today, your life is important to God. The reason he's given you breath for one more day is because you have a mission here on earth, and he wants you to fulfill the mission. He's given you all. I was explaining to my wife, you guys probably know this, but she didn't. Y'all heard of MacGyver?
Yeah.
So we watched MacGyver growing up. I watched MacGyver. And so MacGyver would be in these impossible situations, and then all of a sudden he'd be like, look, duct tape, this little pole and a string, and we're gonna break out of here, and all of a sudden he saves the day. Like that, I believe it's the same thing in Christianity. Like a lot of times it's around us, all these tools, but we panic. Like you talked about stress, we panic, and we also try to do everything ourselves. We're like, I don't want to tell nobody what's going on with me. I'll tell you one thing I learned in church is you better not, if your church is the kind of church that gets on the microphone and testifies, you better not testify about some illegal stuff, because somebody will call the cops on you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm struggling with heroin addiction. And everybody's like, you know what I mean? Like, same thing in the military. They're like, hey, if you have a problem, we have a counseling program here in the military. If you go to your counseling program and tell them that you have a drinking problem, they'll probably start doing paperwork on you. So, all right, guys, peace.